Hey everyone, tonight we're going somewhere a little more sacred and a lot more desolate. We're venturing beyond the grand cathedrals of Old World Spain and into the sun-scorched, unforgiving frontiers of the New World. We're going to a place where faith was measured in adobe bricks and calloused hands, where salvation was a promise whispered to the wind, and where the silence of God was often louder than the evening prayers. Welcome to the Spanish missions of the Americas, where your noble calling was to save souls, but the first and most difficult soul you had to contend with was your own. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, let your mind wander, and allow the gentle rhythm of my voice to lull you towards sleep. Maybe settle in, pull your blanket a little closer, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your journey begins not in the dust of the frontier, but in the cool stone cloisters of a Franciscan monastery in Spain. You are a young friar, your heart filled with a fervent, almost blinding faith. You've heard the stories from the New World, tales of countless souls living in darkness, waiting for the light of the gospel. You believe, with every fibre of your being, that your purpose, your divine calling, is to bring them that light. You volunteer for the missions, an act of immense piety and self-sacrifice. Your brothers in the monastery praise your courage. You imagine building a beautiful church, teaching happy converts, and creating a perfect little piece of Christian utopia in the wilderness. This noble, romantic vision is what propels you forward. It will not survive the journey. First comes the Atlantic crossing. You're packed into the dark, cramped hold of a Spanish galleon, a space you share with soldiers, colonists and livestock. The voyage is a 2-month-long ordeal of suffering. The food is the familiar, wretched fare of hardtack and salted meat. The water turns foul within weeks, and the seasickness is a constant, churning misery. You are a man of God, but the ocean does not care. You spend weeks lying on a rough pallet, your stomach heaving, your prayers for solid ground lost in the groan of the ship's timbers and the roar of the wind. Disease sweeps through the crowded conditions. You watch men die of fever, their bodies unceremoniously wrapped in a sail and dropped into the deep. You administer last rites, your own faith tested by the sheer indifferent cruelty of the sea. By the time you finally reach the port of Veracruz in New Spain, you are gaunt, weak, and have already had your first hard lesson. The world is much larger and more merciless than you ever imagined in your quiet Spanish monastery. But your journey is far from over. Your assignment is to a remote frontier mission, perhaps in the arid lands of Texas or the deserts of Alta California. This requires another long, arduous trek, this time overland. You travel for weeks, sometimes months, with a small caravan of soldiers and mules. You walk through a landscape that is alien and intimidating. The heat is oppressive, the terrain is rugged, and the wildlife is unfamiliar and often dangerous. You learn to sleep on the hard ground, to ration your water, and to be constantly vigilant. This is not the gentle, rolling countryside of Spain. This is a vast, empty wilderness that seems to swallow all sound, a place where you feel profoundly and utterly alone. When you finally arrive at the site of your future mission, there is nothing there. There's no town, no church, no shelter. There is only dust, scrub brush, and an immense, intimidating silence. The romantic vision you once held is now a distant memory, replaced by a stark and overwhelming reality. Your work is just beginning. You're a man of the cloth. But on the frontier, you must first be a man of labour. You're a construction worker, an engineer, and a bricklayer, all rolled into one. Your first task is to build the mission from the ground up, and you will do it with your own 2 hands. The primary building material is adobe. You spend your days under the hot sun, mixing dirt, water, and straw with your bare feet until it forms a thick, heavy mud. You press this mud into wooden moulds and leave the bricks to bake in the sun. It is back-breaking, monotonous work. Your friar's robes are caked in mud, your hands are cracked and bleeding, and your back screams in protest. You and the 1 or 2 other friars assigned with you, along with a small contingent of a half-dozen soldiers, labour for months to raise the first structures, a crude temporary chapel, simple living quarters, and a protective outer wall. You learn to be a carpenter, felling the few available trees and hewing the logs into beams for the roof with a simple axe and adze. You learn to be a mason, laying the heavy adobe bricks one by one, creating the thick insulating walls that will offer the only respite from the brutal summer heat and the surprising chill of the desert nights. Every part of the mission is built through this relentless physical toil. There are no great machines, no large teams of skilled labourers. There is only you, your fellow friars, the handful of soldiers, and the local Native Americans whom you're trying to coax into this new life, and who often become your reluctant, unpaid workforce. The beautiful, serene image of the Spanish mission, with its graceful arches and peaceful courtyard, is a facade. The reality is that it is a monument built of sweat, exhaustion, and sheer unyielding will. Your day is governed not by inspiration, but by the rigid, unwavering rhythm of the mission bells. You rise before dawn for matins and lauds, the first prayers of the day, held in your small, dark, and often cold chapel. After a meagre breakfast of atole, a thin corn gruel, the day's labour begins. You are not just a priest, you are a full-time farmer. The mission's survival depends on its ability to become self-sufficient. You must clear the land of rocks and thorny brush, a thankless and painful task. You must dig irrigation ditches, or acequias, to bring water from the nearest river or stream to your fields. You spend long hours under the sun, tending to the crops you have brought from the old world, wheat, grapes, olives, and learning to cultivate the crops of the new world, maize, beans, and squash. You struggle against an unfamiliar climate, with its long droughts and sudden floods. You fight against pests you've never seen before. A single failed harvest could mean starvation for everyone at the mission. You are also a rancher. The missions were the first great cattle ranches of the American West. You're responsible for a growing herd of cattle, sheep, and goats. You learn to ride a horse, to brand livestock, and to protect the herd from predators like wolves and mountain lions. Your day is a relentless cycle of hard physical work, punctuated only by the call to prayer. Midday prayers, evening vespers, and finally Compline at night. There is no rest, no leisure. Your life is a pendulum swinging between spiritual duty and the brutal physical demands of survival on the frontier. You are a man of God performing the labour of a beast of burden. The central purpose of your existence here, the very reason for your sacrifice, is the conversion of the local indigenous peoples. This is your sacred mission. But you quickly discover that it is the most difficult and heartbreaking task of all. Your understanding of evangelism is based on a European model. You preach, they listen, they recognize the truth, and they convert. The reality is far more complex. The native peoples you encounter have their own ancient and deeply rooted spiritual beliefs. their own complex societies, and their own languages. They do not see the world as you do. To them, your talk of a single, distant God, of original sin, and of a man who died on a cross is alien and often nonsensical. Your primary tool for attracting them to the mission is not theology, it is survival. You offer them food, a more reliable source of sustenance than their traditional hunting and gathering, which is being disrupted by the Spanish presence. You offer them protection from their traditional enemies, like the Apache or Comanche, who often raid their villages. Slowly, families begin to settle near the mission, drawn in by these practical advantages. But once they are there, they are expected to enter a new world, one of rigid discipline and forced labour. They are expected to abandon their old ways, to attend Mass daily, to learn the catechism in Spanish, and to work in the missions fields and workshops. You see this as saving their souls. They often see it as a form of imprisonment. The cultural clash is immense. You try to teach them monogamy, a concept foreign to some tribes. You try to make them wear woolen clothes in the scorching heat. You punish them for practicing their traditional rituals, which you view as devil worship. There are moments of connection and apparent success. You baptize converts, you teach children their prayers, and you see a community beginning to form. But there is always a current of resistance. Some run away, fleeing back into the wilderness. Others practice their old religion in secret. You are in a constant struggle, your faith and patience tested daily by the profound chasm of understanding between your world and theirs. And then comes the great unseen tragedy of your work, disease. You and the other Europeans have brought with you illnesses to which the native peoples have no immunity. Smallpox, measles, and influenza sweep through the mission communities like a wildfire. The very people you have gathered together to save are now dying in catastrophic numbers. You are living in the epicenter of a demographic collapse. You watch as entire families are wiped out. You baptize a child in the morning and you bury it by evening. The mission church becomes a hospital, and the mission graveyard fills at an alarming rate. You are a healer of souls, but you're an unwitting harbinger of death. The irony is crushing. How do you preach of a loving God in a place so filled with suffering, a suffering that you yourself have brought? The doubt begins to creep in, a cold shadow in the back of your mind. Is this God's will? Or is it a terrible, catastrophic mistake? Your life is one of profound and crushing loneliness. You're often one of only 2 or 3 friars, surrounded by a handful of soldiers you barely trust, and a native population you barely understand. You're thousands of miles and an ocean away from your home, your family, your monastery. A letter from Spain can take a year or more to reach you, if it arrives at all. You are culturally and spiritually isolated, a tiny island of old world faith in a vast and indifferent new world. You have no one to share your deepest fears and doubts with. You confess your sins to your fellow friar, who then confesses his to you. You are locked in a small, closed circle of shared hardship and quiet desperation. You miss the sound of the rain in Spain, the taste of familiar food, the intellectual companionship of your brothers in the monastery. The vibrant, complex world you sought to convert remains stubbornly alien to you. The silence of the desert nights is immense, a void that can swallow your prayers whole. Some friars break under the strain, succumbing to despair, madness, or the temptation to abandon their post. But you endure, clinging to your faith like a man clinging to a piece of driftwood in a vast empty sea. The morning sun, when it finally manages to pierce the narrow, crowded alleys of Baroque Madrid, does not find you in a grand palace or a serene monastery. It finds you in a small, cramped room on the top floor of a tenement, a space that smells of stale wine, wood shavings, and the lingering dreams of the night before. You awaken to the sounds of the city, a chaotic symphony of iron-shod wheels on cobblestones, the cries of street vendors selling everything from water to old clothes, and the incessant ringing of a dozen different church bells, each one calling the faithful to prayer and reminding you that another day of toil has begun. You are a titiritero, a puppeteer, and your life is a delicate dance between art and poverty, between satire and survival, in the heart of the glorious, decadent, and deeply hypocritical Spanish Golden Age. Before you even think of breakfast, your first duty is to your colleagues, your family, your entire theatrical troupe. You turn not to a person, but to a large, battered wooden chest that sits in the corner of your room. You open it with a reverence usually reserved for a holy relic, and inside, nestled in scraps of cloth, lie your puppets. They are not the polished, perfect creations of a royal artisan. They are your own handiwork, carved from soft wood, their faces painted with expressions of comical exaggeration, their bodies a motley collection of rags and recycled finery. They are your stock characters, the beloved archetypes of the Spanish street. The brash, boastful captain, his uniform slightly tattered, the clever, scheming servant, El Gracioso, with a perpetual smirk, the vain, foolish noblewoman, her powdered face already chipped, and the bumbling, miserly old merchant clutching a tiny empty purse. These are not just dolls. They are your livelihood, your voice, and your only true companions. Your morning routine is one of painstaking maintenance. The captain's string has frayed again. You take a new piece of waxed thread and carefully restring his arm, your fingers moving with the practiced skill of a surgeon. You test the movement, making him draw his tiny wooden sword in a clumsy, arrogant flourish. Perfect. The noblewoman's silk dress, a scrap of fabric you salvage from a tailor's trash heap, has a tear. You take a needle and thread and mend it with small, almost invisible stitches. You mix a tiny amount of pigment with oil to touch up the paint on the old merchant's nose, which was damaged during yesterday's particularly enthusiastic performance when a child threw a half-eaten apple at the stage. This is slow, meditative work. It is a quiet conversation between you and your wooden actors, a ritual of repair that prepares you all for the day ahead. While your hands are busy, your mind is at work on the story. You're not performing the grand, poetic dramas of Lope de Vega or Calderón de la Barca that are being staged in the formal theatres, the corrales de comedias, for the nobility. Your theatre is the street, and your audience is the common people. Your stories are cruder, funnier, and far more honest. They are satires, morality plays disguised as slapstick comedies. Your plots are simple. The clever servant outwits his greedy master. The boastful captain is tricked by a quick-witted woman. The corrupt official is exposed by his own foolishness. These are tales of the powerless getting one over on the powerful, and your audience loves you for it. Your puppet show is a vehicle for a kind of social commentary that would be dangerous to speak aloud. In your tiny theatre, you can make a puppet representing a city alderman slip on a banana peel. You can have the foolish noblewoman complain about the price of bread while wearing a dress worth more than a farmer's entire yearly income. You can make the pompous priest deliver a sermon about piety while secretly trying to steal a chicken. These jokes are a pressure valve for the common people of Madrid, a way for them to laugh at the injustices they face every day. But you must be careful. Your satire must be cloaked in comedy. If it is too direct, too pointed, it could attract the wrong kind of attention. The line between a beloved street performer and a seditious troublemaker is perilously thin. By late morning, your puppets are repaired and your story is rehearsed in your mind. You pack your troupe into their wooden chest, hoist your small collapsible stage onto your back, and head out into the teeming streets of Madrid. Your goal is to find a good pitch, a spot in a busy plaza where you can attract a crowd. Perhaps it is a corner of the bustling Puerta del Sol, or the grand Plaza Mayor, the very heart of the city. You must compete with a myriad of other street performers, jugglers, acrobats, blind singers with their guitars, wandering storytellers, and the occasional charlatan selling a miracle cure for baldness. You set up your stage, a simple wooden frame with a curtain to hide you from view, and now you must gather your audience. You might have a partner, perhaps your own child, who will beat a small drum or play a tin whistle, a sharp, cheerful sound designed to cut through the din of the city and draw the attention of passers-by. Slowly a crowd begins to form, a group of apprentices on their lunch break, a few off-duty soldiers, a cluster of market women, and a swarm of curious children. When you have enough people, the show begins. You disappear behind the curtain, and your world shrinks to the small elevated stage. Your hands, which just hours ago were mending and painting, now become the souls of your wooden actors. You are a master of motion. With subtle twists of your wrist and pulls of nearly invisible strings, you make the puppets walk, bow, fight, and swoon. You provide all the voices, switching in an instant from the captain's booming baritone to the noblewoman's high-pitched squeal to the servant's cunning whisper. It is an act of incredible dexterity and vocal agility. You watch the audience through a small peephole in the curtain. You see their faces light up with laughter as the servant tricks the merchant. You hear their gasps as the captain draws his sword. You feel the collective cheer when the foolish noble gets his comeuppance. For these few minutes, you are a god, controlling a small universe of your own making, and you have the rapt attention of the crowd. This is the magic of your profession. It is a direct, immediate connection with your audience, a shared moment of laughter and truth in the middle of a busy, indifferent city. At the end of the performance, your partner passes a hat through the crowd. A few small copper coins, maravedis, are tossed in. It is not much, but it might be enough for a hot meal and a cup of wine. You will perform this same show several times throughout the day, in different parts of the city, chasing the crowds in the daylight. But this life is fraught with peril. Your subversive comedy is a constant risk. The city guard, the alguaciles, are always a threat. If a powerful nobleman or a wealthy merchant takes offence at one of your jokes, a complaint can be made. The guards might storm your small stage, confiscate your puppets, and throw you in jail for a night. You have learned to read the crowd, to know when a joke has landed wrong, and you're always ready to pack up your chest and disappear into an alleyway at a moment's notice. An even greater threat is the church. The Spanish Inquisition is at the height of its power, and its eyes are everywhere. While a humble puppeteer might fly under its radar, an accusation of heresy is easy to make and impossible to fight. A joke about a priest that is too sharp, a plot that seems to mock a sacred doctrine. These things can lead to a visit from men in dark robes from which there is no escape. You walk a tightrope, using comedy as your balancing pole. And then there is the simple hardship of poverty. Your income is entirely dependent on the generosity of a crowd that has very little to give. On a good day, you earn enough to eat, On a bad day, a rainy day, or a day when a more exciting spectacle like a public execution is happening nearby, you earn nothing. Your life is one of constant uncertainty, and yet you continue. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the Plaza Mayor, you perform your final show of the day. You carefully pack away your wooden actors, their painted smiles seeming to thank you for another day of life. You count the meagre coins in your bag. It is enough. You return to your small dark room. You share a simple meal of bread, cheese, and a bit of cheap wine. The voices of your puppets still echo in your head. You think about the new story you will tell tomorrow, a new way to make the clever servant win, a new way to make the people laugh. You're not a great artist of the Spanish Golden Age. Your name will not be remembered alongside the great playwrights and poets. But in your own small way, you are just as vital. You are a storyteller, a satirist, a keeper of the people's truth. You hold a mirror up to the grand, hypocritical world of Baroque Madrid, and you do it with nothing more than a few blocks of wood, some scraps of cloth, and your own 2 hands. Your world is made of 2 things, sand and camels. From the moment you were born into your Bedouin tribe, these have been the twin realities that govern your existence. The sand is an endless shifting sea of rust-red dunes and barren rock, a landscape of profound emptiness and brutal beauty. And the camels are the ships that allow you to navigate this sea. They are not merely livestock. They're your family's wealth, your transportation, your source of milk and hair for weaving, and your only hope of survival in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the ancient Arabian desert. You are a camel boy, and your life is a long, slow apprenticeship in the ancient art of understanding the most stubborn, resilient, and essential creature in your world. Your education does not take place in a classroom. It begins as soon as you can walk. Your earliest memories are of the camel's smell, a dry, musky, not unpleasant scent, and their strange, gurgling groans and discontented bellows. As a small child, your first chore is to watch over the youngest camels, the calves, while their mothers are out grazing. You keep them close to the black goat hair tents of your family's camp, ensuring they don't wander off and fall prey to a wolf or get lost in the dunes. You learn to recognize each one, not by a brand, but by its personality. This one is curious and prone to mischief. That one is shy and nervous. You learn their language of grunts, snorts, and sighs. You learn that a low, rumbling groan can mean contentment, while a sharp, guttural bark is a clear sign of annoyance, usually directed at you. As you grow older, your responsibilities deepen. You learn from your father and your uncles, men whose faces are lined and leathery from a lifetime under the sun. They teach you the essential skills passed down through generations. You learn how to find grazing for the herd in a land that seems utterly devoid of life. It's not about finding lush pastures, but about spotting the tough, thorny acacia trees whose leaves the camels can patiently strip, or the bitter desert shrubs that hold just enough moisture to sustain them. You learn to read the landscape for signs of water, a skill that is the difference between life and death. Your father shows you how the shape of the terrain can indicate a hidden well, or how to dig for precious brackish water in a dry riverbed, a wadi. You learn to taste the water, to know if it is safe for the animals and for you. You learn the intricate art of loading a camel, a skill that is far more complex than it looks. A poorly balanced load can injure the animal or shift during the march, causing chaos. You're taught the specific names for each part of the camel saddle and the complex system of ropes and knots used to secure the baggage. You practice these knots for hours, your small fingers fumbling with the coarse rope until the movements become second nature. A knot that comes loose on the trail can mean a lost water skin or a shattered clay pot, a minor disaster that could have major consequences. You also learn the more intimate tasks of camel husbandry. You help your father treat a camel's saddle sores with a paste of crushed herbs and fat. You assist during a difficult birth, guiding a newborn calf into the world. You learn that camels are not just beasts of burden. They are living, breathing creatures that require constant care and attention. You come to understand the camel itself as a miracle of engineering, a creature perfectly designed for this harsh world. You admire its long, double-layered eyelashes that shield its deep brown eyes from blowing sand, and its ability to close its nostrils completely during a sandstorm. You study its wide, leathery, two-toed feet that spread out like snowshoes, allowing it to walk with a steady, rocking gait on soft sand without sinking. You learn from the elders that its famous hump does not store water, as outsiders believe, but fat, a dense, vital energy reserve that the camel's body can metabolize for both food and water during long journeys without sustenance. You witness its incredible ability to drink over 30 gallons of water in a matter of minutes at a well, rehydrating its body after days of deprivation. But alongside this admiration, you learn its personality. The camel is not a noble, willing steed like a horse. It is a creature of profound and legendary stubbornness. It complains loudly and bitterly when being loaded, letting out a series of gurgling, protesting groans that sound like a drain being unclogged. It will spit a foul-smelling green cud with surprising accuracy when annoyed. And it will sometimes, for reasons known only to its own mysterious camel mind, simply sit down in the middle of a march and refuse to move. Your job is not to command it with force, but to coax it, to reason with it, to pull gently on its lead rope and murmur soothing words until it decides, on its own terms, to cooperate. You have a specific camel, a young female or necker, that is your primary charge. You know her quirks, her favourite scratching spot behind the ears, the specific groan she makes when she is tired. Your bond with her is one of the most important relationships in your young life, a partnership built on mutual, if sometimes grudging, respect. All of this training, all of these small daily duties are preparation for the ultimate test of your skills and endurance, the Great Caravan. This is the lifeblood of your world. For centuries, the tribes of Arabia have controlled the great trade routes, particularly the incense route, a legendary path that carries precious goods from the kingdoms of southern Arabia, like the ancient land of Sheba, to the great markets of the Mediterranean world. The most valuable of these goods are frankincense and myrrh, aromatic resins harvested from scraggly trees in what is now Yemen and Oman. These were worth more than their weight in gold, demanded by temples in Egypt, Rome and Persia for their religious ceremonies, and by the wealthy for their perfumes and medicines. Your tribe is part of this grand enterprise, and as a boy on the cusp of manhood, it is time for you to join your first long-haul caravan. The preparation is a monumental undertaking. The caravan gathers at a designated oasis, a chaotic and exciting meeting of different clans. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of camels are gathered, their groans and bellows filling the air. The goods are packed and loaded. not just the sacks of precious incense, but also spices from India, silks that have travelled from the distant east, and ivory from Africa, all of which have arrived in the southern ports by sea. Your role in this vast moving city is humble but essential. You're not a guard or a merchant. You're a tender of the animals. Your job is to walk. You do not ride. Riding is reserved for the caravan master, the wealthy merchants, and the armed guards who protect the convoy. You and the dozens of other camel boys walk alongside the camels, your feet sinking into the hot sand for the entire duration of the journey. A day on the trail is a study in monotonous, grueling rhythm. You are woken before dawn in the deep, silent cold of the desert night. The stars are a brilliant, terrifyingly clear canopy above you. The first task is to round up the camels, which have been hobbled and allowed to graze on the sparse vegetation, and prepare them for loading. The animals, still sleepy, groan and complain in the darkness as you hoist the heavy, leather-bound packs onto their backs. As the first light of dawn breaks across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of rose and orange, the caravan begins to move. It is a long, slow, snaking line against the immense empty landscape. You take your place beside your assigned camels, your simple wooden staff in hand. You walk all day. The sun climbs higher, and the heat becomes a physical blow, a weight on your shoulders. There is no shade, no escape. The world is a shimmering, silent vista of sand and rock. The pace is slow and steady, a hypnotic rhythm of shuffling feet and the soft, cushioned thud of camel hooves on the sand. The only sounds are the creak of the leather harnesses, the occasional grunt from a camel, and the vast, overwhelming silence of the desert. You're given a small ration of water and a handful of dried dates to sustain you through the day. You learn to conserve your energy, to breathe through your mouth, and to read the signs of the desert. The caravan master, the Akid, is a man of immense knowledge and authority. He navigates not with a map, but with a mental chart of the desert passed down through generations. He reads the position of the sun during the day and the patterns of the stars at night. He understands the direction of the prevailing wind and can read the subtle shapes and colours of the dunes. He knows the location of every hidden well and seasonal oasis along the route. His word is law. To get lost in this environment is to die, and the desert has other dangers. A sudden sandstorm, a shamal, can appear on the horizon with terrifying speed. A roiling yellow-brown wall of sand that can blot out the sun and bury everything in its path. When this happens, the caravan master gives the order to halt. The camels are made to kneel, their bodies forming a natural windbreak, and you and the other drivers huddle behind them, covering your face with your headcloth, waiting for the storm to pass, the wind howling around you like a furious spirit. There is also the constant threat of raiders from other tribes, who see your valuable cargo as a tempting prize. The caravan's armed guards are always vigilant, but a surprise attack can still happen, turning the quiet desert into a scene of chaotic violence, with flashing swords and flying arrows. After weeks of walking, your body aching and your mind numbed by the endless monotony, you finally arrive at your destination. Perhaps it is the magnificent rock-carved city of Petra, or the bustling markets of Damascus. For a boy who has known only the black tents of his tribe and the emptiness of the desert, the sight of a great city is overwhelming. The crowds, her stone buildings, the sounds and smells of thousands of people are a sensory assault. But your work is not yet done. You must help unload the camels, delivering the precious cargo of frankincense and myrrh, to the waiting merchants who will sell it on to the Roman and Persian worlds. And what is your reward for this incredible feat of endurance? It is not gold or silver. Your payment is more fundamental. You have survived. You have proven your worth to your tribe and to your family. You have learned the secrets of the desert and the ways of the camel. You have played your small but essential part in the great economic engine that connects the empires of the world. You're no longer just a boy. You're a man of the caravan, a true son of the desert. As you prepare for the long journey home, this time with the camels laden with goods from the north, wheat, textiles and metal tools, you look back at the city, a place of unimaginable wealth, built on the scent of the resins you help transport. Your life will be one of more journeys, more hardships, more long walks in the sun, but you have found your place in the world, a silent, vital walker alongside the great ships of the desert. Your entire world is forged from steel, discipline, and the pursuit of a perfect lethal beauty. You're a samurai of 16th century Japan, a member of a warrior class that has dominated the battlefield for centuries. Your life is governed by Bushido, the way of the warrior, a code of honor, loyalty, and absolute self-control. Your soul, they say, resides in your sword, the katana. It is not merely a weapon, it is an extension of your being, a work of art forged in fire and folded thousands of times. Its edge so sharp it can slice through silk scarves falling in the air. You have spent your entire life since you were a boy, training to master it. You have practiced the forms, the stances, the strikes, thousands upon thousands of times, until the blade moves as if it were a part of your own arm. Your skill in single combat is your identity, your honor, and your claim to superiority. And then, one day, a new sound echoes across the battlefield. It is not the clash of steel or the cry of a warrior. It is a deafening, vulgar crack, followed by a cloud of acrid smoke, and a man falls dead 100 paces away, killed by an enemy he couldn't even see, an enemy who possessed no skill, no honor, and no training. This is the sound of the arquebus, the matchlock firearm, and it is the sound of your world beginning to end. The weapon first arrived on your shores in 1543. A Chinese junk carrying Portuguese traders was shipwrecked on the small island of Tanegashima, off the southern coast of Japan. The local lord, Tanegashima Tokitaka, was fascinated by the strange noisy tubes the foreigners carried. He purchased 2 of them and immediately set his swordsmiths to the task of replicating them. The Japanese, who were already master metalworkers, not only copied the design with astonishing speed and precision, but they improved upon it. They developed better firing mechanisms and techniques for mass production. Within a decade, firearms, which became known as Tanegashima after the island where they first appeared, were being produced in greater numbers in Japan than in all of Europe combined. But for you, a traditional samurai of a proud clan like the Takeda, this new weapon is an object of contempt. It is a peasant's tool, a coward's weapon. It requires no strength, no discipline, no years of spiritual and physical training. Any low-born foot soldier, an ashigaru, can be taught to use one in a matter of days. You watch them on the training field, a clumsy, slow process of pouring powder down a barrel, ramming a lead ball into place, and then fumbling with a burning match cord to ignite the charge. It is slow. It is unreliable, misfiring frequently in the rain, and it is wildly inaccurate. You scoff at it. How could this crude, noisy contraption ever compare to the honour and artistry of a sword duel, a contest of pure skill between two dedicated warriors? You and your comrades believe that true victory can only be won face to face, blade to blade. The gun is a dishonourable trick, an ugly and graceless tool that has no place on a true battlefield. This, you believe, is a passing fad. You could not be more wrong. While you and your traditionalist clan cling to the way of the sword, a new breed of daimyo, or warlords, sees the future. The most prominent of these is Oda Nobunaga, a brilliant, ruthless, and deeply pragmatic leader who is on a mission to unify the war-torn country under his rule. Nobunaga is not interested in honour or tradition. He is interested in winning, and he immediately understands the revolutionary power of the firearm. He sees that a battlefield is not a dojo. It is a place of brutal mathematics, and the gun allows him to change the equation. He begins to equip thousands of his Ashigaru foot soldiers with mass-produced Tanegashima, drilling them not in individual skill, but in collective, disciplined firepower. The moment that your worldview shatters comes in 1575 at the Battle of Nagashino. Your clan, the Takeda, led by the brilliant Takeda Katsuyori, possesses what is considered the most powerful and invincible military force in all of Japan, its cavalry. You are one of these cavalrymen, a proud samurai on a powerful warhorse, clad in beautiful lacquered armour, your katana at your side. For generations, the Takeda cavalry charge has been an unstoppable force, a thundering wave of steel and courage that has broken every enemy line it has ever faced. Your opponent is the allied army of Oda Nobunaga and Tokugawa Ieyasu. As you survey their position from across the plain, you feel a surge of contemptuous confidence. Their army appears to be a defensive, cowardly rabble of low-class Ashigaru, hiding behind simple makeshift wooden palisades. They are armed with those noisy, dishonourable firearms. You and your comrades are ready to ride them down like wheat before a storm. The order is given. The Takeda cavalry charges. It is a magnificent, terrifying sight. Thousands of samurai on horseback, their colourful banners flying, thunder across the plain. The ground trembles beneath their hooves. This is the very embodiment of samurai power, a glorious, unstoppable avalanche of honour and steel. You are part of this wave, your heart pounding with the warrior spirit, your hand on the hilt of your sword, ready for the glorious clash of combat. But the clash never comes. Oda Nobunaga has not prepared for a traditional battle. He is prepared for an execution. He has arranged his 3,000 arquebusiers into rotating ranks behind the wooden barricades, which slow the cavalry charge and protect his men. As your charge gets within range, the first rank of Nobunaga's musketeers raises their weapons and fires. A single, deafening, rolling volley erupts, a sound louder than any thunder you've ever heard. A massive cloud of white smoke instantly obscures the enemy line, but through the smoke comes a storm of lead. Horses scream and collapse. Men are thrown from their saddles, their beautiful armour pierced by crude, simple lead balls. Before you can even process the shock, the first rank of musketeers has stepped back to reload, and the second rank steps forward and fires another devastating volley. Then the third rank. It is a continuous, disciplined, and utterly impersonal storm of death. You are no longer a proud warrior, you are a target. Your skill with the sword is meaningless. Your horse is shot out from under you. You fall to the ground, your armour heavy and encumbering. All around you is chaos, smoke, and the screams of your dying comrades. The invincible Takeda cavalry is being systematically annihilated by an army of peasants they cannot even reach. This is not a battle, it is a slaughter. And in that moment, contempt turns to a new and unfamiliar feeling. Terror. It is the terror of helplessness. The terror of realizing that your entire world, your code of honor, your years as training, your very identity as a warrior has just been rendered obsolete by a simple tube filled with gunpowder. You have spent your life mastering the art of killing, only to be killed by a machine. The Battle of Nagashino was a turning point in Japanese history. It marked the end of the romantic ideal of the individual samurai hero and the beginning of modern, impersonal warfare in Japan. The daimyo, who, like Nobunaga, embraced firearms and large, disciplined infantry armies, went on to unify the country. Those who clung to the traditional ways of the samurai were swept aside. The role of the samurai class began a slow, irreversible decline. While they would remain an elite ruling class for another 3 centuries, their dominance on the battlefield was over. This sword, the soul of the samurai, had been defeated by the gun. In a strange historical irony, after Japan was unified under the Tokugawa shogunate in the early 17th century, the new government, fearing the power of firearms in the hands of peasants or potential rebels, instituted a policy of extreme restriction. Gun manufacturing was tightly controlled, and owning a firearm became a privilege reserved for a select few. This closing of the country to outside influence and technology led to a period of over 250 years of relative peace, during which the sword, paradoxically, returned to its place of prominence as the primary symbol of the samurai class. The samurai of the Edo period practiced swordsmanship as an art form and a philosophical discipline. The gun was put back in its box, a memory of a brief, bloody and transformative era. But the terror it had inspired was never truly forgotten. It was the memory of a future that had arrived too soon, a future where honour could be extinguished from a distance, and where a single peasant with a simple weapon could fell the greatest warrior in the land. The samurai were terrified of guns not just because they were deadly, but because they were democratic.